Okay. Here I am. Yeah. It's kind of weird interviewing yourself, but we'll see what happens. Okay. My name is Bre Legan. I go by Beetle the Poet in the creative scene, and I'm an artist, writer, and a dreamer.
I'm a 4th and 5th grade humanities teacher. I'm a mom, but I've always been a writer and a poet.
I'm an artist and a creative person.
I like to kind of have my hand in everything, I guess.
By profession, I'm a mechanical engineer.
I am a grower. I'm a dancer.
I am a professional astrologer.
I am a social media manager.
I'm a student. I am going to school for musical theater and dance.
I'm a Milwaukee musician.
Professionally, I'm a filmmaker. Unprofessionally, I'm a filmmaker. And even more unprofessionally, I'm a poet.
I'm an engineer by career.
I am a PhD student.
Yeah, I make music under the name Paperback Hero.
I am a digital illustrator in Milwaukee.
I'm a journalist by profession.
I'm a bunch of hats. I'm a chef hat, I'm a poet hat, I'm a teacher hat. I try to be all those things at once without exploding, and sometimes I do.
Alright, go for it.
Ready to rock and roll?
Are you here for spray painting?
Yes, I am. Sorry.
Oh no, welcome. I'm just finishing this one up and I'll head across the street, but
Okay.
feel free to take a look at what you're about to get into.
Yeah.
I really wanted to get to know folks in the creative space, and the best way to do that is to bring people together doing what they love. So that's where spray painted poems sort of emerged. This project is really simple. The idea is that you collect poems, you collect lyrics, you collect short works of writing from people that live in the spaces that you want to bring together. So 36 poets submitted work. 36 poems are on the sidewalks in front of 18 businesses or really important places in the River West neighborhood.
A lot of people will be on the sidewalks out walking when they're trying to think through something big, or maybe need to calm down or to get a little bit of perspective on their life. So I feel like having this public art installation of people's poetry, I think it'll be a really good way to get people to stop and get out of their heads while they're walking.
It creates moments of pause for people to stop and reflect in a world that's like constantly going. I think poetry allows you to like stop and just like sit and think for a second.
I think it's really special that I can use sidewalk as a canvas, because sidewalks are public communal spaces, and so for my work to be a part of that is not only really interesting and fun for me, but I hope a source of inspiration for others.
Because my rooting before really identifying as a creative and a creator is community organizing. I love public, democratized public goods and art. I'm a huge fan of street art, and to have one of my first poems showcased on the street in my neighborhood fills me with so much joy.
I do associate like a lot of my identity with where I live and the neighborhood I'm in, like in my writing, and it's very cool to see that physically in the neighborhood as well.
I didn't expect to feel so vulnerable in sharing poetry with the public, and so this is definitely a step out into a new place for myself.
These are really great opportunities because it kind of like inspires that like making hand again, and I think that's really important for folks to be around because it's just good and healthy, and it kind of like brings people together.
Pull it back out. There we go. There we go.
To me, it just highlights, hey, we care about poetry. Here it is. We care enough that we want to spend time for you to see it, and I think that that is very inspiring, especially to artists that feel like don't nobody want to hear this. These are just my little diary entries, you know, and I think that there are people that want to hear and be inspired and be touched and be reminded by a lot of the poetry that's out here. And so I think to see it on the sidewalk just highlights that more.
As someone who often felt on the fringes growing up, finding a sense of community here in Milwaukee has been the most revolutionary thing that I could do. I'm such a firm believer that revolutions are built around community and built around solidarity and built on those really strong bonds. And I've never felt that stronger than here in Milwaukee.
I'm so in love with this project. I think that Milwaukee deserves more community projects where we can form connections and we can express ourselves and share our art that is available for everyone and not just a certain class of people.
I'm really big on being Black and leaving a legacy, and I finally feel like we are in the time to actually do that and for it to stick because I'm tired of people working their butts off for their whole lives so the next generation are still poor and starving and means nothing. And so like since we've been here, we've just been very community based. You know, I really want to push myself to go ahead and do that, and to see the fruits that come from those things I think is really important and really inspiring.
It was really important for me to situate the poems on the sidewalks that are being spray painted to actually be turned. So as you're walking down the sidewalk, you see a poem that's sideways. And so you physically have to turn your body to read the poem. And then whenever you look up from reading the poem, you're actually facing a business. And hopefully folks will walk into the buildings if they're open and pick up an asset map, because that's sort of the crux of the project, is that there's an asset map that's available online that details both the poet and then also information about the business too. And it's all situated in a nice little map so you can have a poetry walk if you want. I think it's so important to bring together these different worlds and highlight the assets that are in communities.
Teamwork, yeah, we're like truly, we'll do like, I'll do one letter, you do the other letter. Sure. No.
I'm just out here saying sure to everything. Wide second for this.
Community means love. It means support. It means showing up. And even if you don't like all the art that's happening, you still show up, and that went away for the longest time. I mean, everyone experienced the pandemic, so you all know, but it's really great to have community back. And I think it was at those moments when community started re-emerging that I realized how wonderful Milwaukee could be.
People that you can surround yourself with that are share that dream and that vision. I don't know if any of us are really able to put it into words exactly what we hope to get out of our work and contributing to the city, but I think everyone is committed to forward progress, and that's exciting to be a part of.
Coming to Linneman's that we're outside of right now is like a great spot for, because that's kind of where everything started for me in the last few years. Meeting a lot of people, working on myself in a lot of different ways in life. So it's come to be, you know, more of a real sense of home, more and more community.
I've lived in Milwaukee for about 20 years. I have loved watching it from the time I first moved here to now. It is just becoming a bigger and better city all the time.
I lived out in Brookfield growing up, and so I had never really had much interaction with Milwaukee until going to college.
Milwaukee is home. It is roots. I am either a 5th or 6th generation Milwaukeean.
I've been here since I was, I think, like 4 or 5.
I have I've been in Milwaukee for less than 6 months.
Milwaukee means the world to me. I've lived here for 30 of my 36 years.
Milwaukee is, I would say, very metaphorically, Milwaukee to me is a leap of faith more so, since I applied to 19 schools in the United States and I got a full ride here, so I came here.
I've lived here for about a year. Milwaukee to me is the freedom to become who I want to be, in a safe space to be able to find myself.
Milwaukee is my home. This is where I've been off and on for almost all of my life in some way, shape, or form.
When I lived in New York, I couldn't shut up about Milwaukee. Like it was Milwaukee this and Milwaukee that, and like, oh, that Hobart, that's, it's me in Milwaukee,
I feel before I moved here, I would run into people from Milwaukee and they're like, oh my God, we gotta get to LA and it's so crazy here and we can't do nothing. And I was just saying, like, a lot of the people from Milwaukee that live in LA hang out with people from Milwaukee. And I'm just like, y'all, you just took your little hopes and dreams to Los Angeles and said, we're gonna make it happen here. But like, if you do that same thing here, you're gonna make it happen.
I've been gigging a lot. I have probably 15 to 20 sets of music next month, for example.
So as for poetry, I've done some open mics at Linneman's that they have on Mondays. But as for performing, I started performing last year and I performed about 10 shows.
Most of my poems I actually type in the notes app on my phone.
I've actually never presented my poetry in real life. This was a first-time thing for me.
I've been published before a lot, quite a bit. I published a book of translation in 2019.
I have never presented poetry. It's definitely more of a personal thing that I do.
I'm hoping to start reading my poetry again, but it feels a little bit more intimidating at my age.
I'm brand new to poetry and writing, but kind of falling in love with it.
I've self-published a lot over 20 years.
I've put the poem out myself from a project in college. It was a project on black farmers, the loss of black farmland, the Great Migration, and environmental racism.
I like the anonymous poems. Yeah, there's just something about that that's really fun.
Something different about them.
Feels like there's more possibilities with anonymous poems.
I feel like it's a very fun medium to be able to like spray paint your work on a sidewalk. I feel like that's something not everyone can say they've done.
Got a good steady stream.
What you don't know is they actually spray paint.
Nice!
I'm actually Banksy.
I know a lot of cities do have just public art and things like that we're getting more and more of in Milwaukee, I think. And that's also something to spread, because creativity is a way to get the things out that maybe you don't have somebody to hear you about, but you can give yourself permission to create something. Basically validate, yourself and your own words and your own ideas by creating something.
Every single stencil was designed, was cut. I pulled every single letter out of the cuts. Many, many hours went into the prep work for all of these pieces, and I can't even begin to articulate like how special it was to actually have people gathered together and looking at their stencils for the first time and saying, those are my words, this is my work. It's just so powerful.
To see these words literally on concrete, it kind of solidifies the power that I'm trying that I want these words to have.
I write a lot, but I don't judge other people. It's like never been published before, but the fact that it's like on a sidewalk, like painted, and people are gonna see it every day, like it makes it real, and like makes all like my dreams of becoming a writer like seem like it's coming true. So
I see myself in every poem on this sidewalk, and I kind of hope that's how everyone else feels as they walk along the streets. seeing words that are encouraging or talk about heartbreak, talk about loss, talk about grieving, talk about joyous laughter. I feel like these poems really represent this spectrum of human existence, and that's not something that you typically have access to as you're just going for a walk.
I hope it touches other corners of the city. I really do. And especially ignored corners.
As a scholar and as a human, really, I draw so much of my inspiration from Bell Hooks, and specifically her book All About Love. It teaches us to return to an act of becoming loving, caring, kind, empathetic humans. The way that this book starts off is just a great encapsulation of how I hope spray-painted poems really catches people and how it catches fire in the community and beyond. To holding on, to knowing again that moment of rapture, of recognition, where we can face one another as we really are, stripped of artifice and pretense, naked and not ashamed. Here's to letting go of that shame and being brave and being unapologetic. Sharing your art, sharing your writing with others is terrifying, and it's a very vulnerable act that has a really high payoff.
Gorgeous, volatile storm she may be, Jupiter is a woman like me. I think women often feel very contained in ourselves. We have to hold a lot of things in, where our emotions have to fit inside for them to be, palatable to the world. And I think Jupiter came from a moment of realization of like, no, I'm a little crazy, but it's okay, because we don't look at Jupiter and say, what a horrible planet. I would never want to know or understand anything about that planet. I mean, to this day, we're still figuring out what's wrong with her storms.
On land, she's said to feel the ghosts. Life lessons linger in seeds. It takes on a different life, for sure, and there's definitely parts of it that I chose to specifically be a part of this project, too. And, it's the poem, the larger poem, is a love letter to the people in my life who have learned about farming and healing from, and the land and healing from. So, like my farming mentor Regina, and Bell Hooks, and my grandma.
The piece of the poem is, my ego weighs 100 pounds. I often think I'm too heavy to care about. And I really like that because lately I've been noticing how much my ego has stopped me from doing a lot of things. And it just feels like a very heavy weight that I don't realize until I'm trying to leap into something.
My poem is for everyone. And for myself, I really think that we all have beautiful truths that are hidden inside of us, and sometimes we're afraid to pull and extract those truths because we're afraid of being bigger and going bolder in our lives. And hopefully it will have someone pause and think about what are the things that I'm not doing in my life that I could be doing.
I think my poem's for everyone who has a wish or a dream, who wants to heal. And I think that the world that you think of today is what you eventually get to live. You create it, you speak it into existence, and you get to live it later.
Milwaukee, to me, represents a rebirth, or an emergence, or a renaissance. The poem that I have on the sidewalk, it says the becoming must be our own doing. And I fully believe that Milwaukee has been a catalyst for so much of the becoming that I am doing and the growth that I am actively going through.
It's kind of amazing when you start to believe in yourself again, how quickly things start taking off.
It seems like after 19 years of being a poet and like 10 years of submitting poems, my poetry career is taking off now.
Put stuff out so you can allow opportunities for people to support you. I think people don't do that, and then they feel unsupported, but they haven't given ways for people to support them. Like, since I started performing poetry, I did not know how many people cared about me.
I think Bell Hooks would be proud of the project. I'm really proud of this project because it's not my project in any way, shape, or form. I organized it, but I am one drop of a poet in this sea of beautiful creativity and community, and it's our project because it's our city. And creating this project and seeing it through is just one way to take ownership of a city that has given us so much. So it's really an honor to give Milwaukee this gift of all of this beautiful writing that is contained here in the city. Yeah. Yeah. That's all.